Today we've got questions on the Holy Roman Empire, deathbed conversions, the legend of Atlantis, and Charles tells us about his favorite style of suits. Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu, now being broadcast and podcast on the Crusade Channel. Talk radio the way it should be. CrusadeChannel.com. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a Baroque Charles Coulombe.
Baroque? Really? 17th century architecture and music? Christopher Wren, Johann Sebastian Bach, Leibniz?
Yeah, well, pretty good, I feel like.
Yeah. All right, I guess I could fit in. No, my hair is shorter than it was.
It's not Rococo. I'm sorry about that.
Well, maybe next week if we're good. I love Rococo, but I do love Baroque. And, it's a funny thing. Here in Central Europe, I am really surrounded by it. It's everywhere.
Good, yeah.
That's why we always should go for Baroque.
Ha ha ha. Yeah.
There used to be an art center, maybe there still is, in the west side of LA called Beyond Baroque. I wonder if they're still with us. Are they among the living? You're kind of countercultural, aren't you?
Yeah. I have my moments.
Well,
Why?
Let's see, Beyond Baroque. Yeah. It's still going. It's in Venice. We'd expect it to be. Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center is a literary arts center. Well, we got that much. Located at 681 Venice Boulevard, Los Angeles, California. Founded in 1968. It's in Los Angeles' old Venice City Hall. Beyond Baroque. Well, don't you feel counterculture? I could imagine Pope Francis and the new head, the DDF, as we have to call it, the new doctrinal watchdog. I could see them attending concerts at Beyond Baroque in their youth, or their senility, or whatever it is they're doing. I shouldn't say that about Cardinal Tuccia, because he's actually 2 years younger than I am, though he's still a boomer.
I thought you were the last year.
No, 64.
Oh, okay.
So Tuccia is even more marginal of a boomer than I am. But you've heard about his book? Everyone's gotten very excited about. Heal Me with Your Mouth, A Guide to the Art of Kissing.
I've heard of it. Yes.
Well, I have come up with a sequel to it.
Okay, let's hear it.
Heal Me with Your Snout, A Guide to the Art of Rooting in the Trough.
That sounds like a really good book.
Yeah, well,
do you have any tips? Any takeaways from the book?
Yeah. Well, if you're gonna act like a pig, you might as well have the joy. But no, it's quite interesting. A lot of people are very upset and excited, not just because of his interesting taste in books. Just to be fair, he wrote that as a sex guide for his young parishioners, which, as you know, is what every pastor should be doing. No, that what? Well, he's very upset that people have been using that to make him look stupid. And I think he's right. There's so many other things that do the job much better and are more recent.
Like?
His contributions to Amoris Laetitia. His speeches. He says he's come out for condoms. That's good. He's and this thing is going to be guarding the purity of the Catholic faith. We have literally gone beyond satire.
I feel like the accelerationists are pretty happy with this one.
Oh gosh, yes. Finita la commedia. I mean, it's just silly. It's ridiculous. It's like James Martin being, one of the American heads now, the synod of the odding sin, or odd sins, or sinning oddly, or whatever it is. It's hard to keep up. You've got Cardinal Gregory, Cardinal Seepage, Cardinal McElroy, and James Martin.
It should. That almost should be
Rub a dub 4 men in a tub.
Dude, that's ratings. That should be a reality TV show or something. Dude, that they would make bank.
I'm a cardinal. Get me out of here. Oh yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Rub-a-dub-dub. Let me tell you. I mean, it's ladies and gentlemen, we have really hit a sort of crisis point in the sense that if you want to keep your sanity, you got to laugh. So my advice is that if you're not in a position where you're kind of stuck with the question of obedience, just laugh and don't worry about it. Don't even think about it. The church survived Stephen VI's cadaver synod with the body of Pope Formosus, and it will survive Pornocracy 2, Electric Boogaloo. I mean, that's what we've got going right now. I like that, don't you? Pornocracy 2, Electric Boogaloo.
It's very on brand, I'll say that.
You compare their dribblings with Christ on the cross, and it's kind of hard. I was at St. Peter's 2 days ago.
Well, in Rome.
Yeah. It's not Rome, New York, the other one, the phony one in Italy. And it was interesting. I hadn't been there for some time. I had not been there since Papa Francesco got rid of the masses. It used to be you'd go into St. Peter's,
right,
and there'd be masses at every other side altar. Whatever time you went there, people were offering the mass and attending it. And it really felt alive in a spiritual sense. And, there'd be some traditional masses. There'd be Novus Ordo. Sometimes there'd be Eastern things that didn't really fit very well. But you could feel the piety. Now, it's like a museum. Even the statue of St. Peter, you can't venerate the foot anymore.
Because of COVID?
Because you can't. No, because you can't. I mean, The Art of Kissing is in Tucha's book. That's Cardinal Tucha Fernandez, the person's name is. Tucha did not intend The Art of Kissing to be used on venerating St. Peter. So, it's a real, mind you, don't get me wrong, I was very happy to be at St. Peter's. I loved it, as always. But it's like a museum. You can still go to confession there, though, which you can't do in museums. And you can pray, which, again, is very difficult to do in most museums. So it's not far from a complete loss. Also went to Sacro Cuore del Suffragio and venerated gawked. I venerated the Blessed Sacrament, but I gawked at the Purgatory Museum, and then went to Santa Maria Trasportina, former home of the Pachamamas, and I saw the site of the Pachamama's baptism in the Tiber. It's a total immersion. It was like a Baptist thing, the idly merged Catholic or something. I don't know. Then St. Peter's. The next day, went to Santa Maria Maggiore and was able to venerate the relic of the crib and the image of Our Lady. Went to St. John Lateran and venerated the table of the Last Supper, the pieces of wood they have from that. And went to San Luigi dei Francesi, the French National Church, and Santa Maria dell'Anima, which is sort of the imperial church in Rome. and was able to venerate the relic of Kaiser Karl, Blessed Kaiser Karl. And that was in Santa Maria Sopra Minerva as well. So I got to venerate St. Catherine of Siena and Blessed Frangelico.
Awesome.
Yeah, everybody got prayed for, even La Papa.
Well, he needs it. That's for sure.
He sure does. And all kidding aside, ladies and gentlemen, amusing as these people's antics are, you got to pray very hard for the Pope and very hard for Tuccia. Because honestly, if we don't, nobody will. And there's, well, the less said, the better. What can I tell you? Less said, soonest mended.
Yeah.
You've heard that.
Loose lips sink ships.
Sink ships. And boy, have some ships sunk. Loose lips sink. That could be a subtitle of Heal Me With Your Mouth.
Loose.
Well, it could be. I don't know.
Very appropriate. Anything else you wanna divulge about your vacay in Rome?
Well, it wasn't much of a vacay. It was very short, really. It was just the 2 days. I slept for 17 hours. Well, you got to bear in mind that finals here, then graduation, then a trip to England, then a wedding, then a trip to Rome. And after seeing St. Peter and all that on the first day, I got back to the hotel at 4 o'clock and slept until 10:30 the following day.
Pretty nice.
Well, it was the air conditioning, frankly, because it was hot as Hades. And the air conditioning in the hotel room was Arctic. It was wonderful. So I just, oh God, no more, bye-bye.
Okay.
But apparently the hotel is much used that I was at, is much used by various curia figures.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
What? They need hotels too.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. All right.
My favorite hotel by the Vatican closed down, I think even before COVID, the Hotel Columbus. And it was bittersweet going past it. I have to admit I would have preferred staying there than when I did stay, but,
Okay. That's kind of a Hotel Columbus. Isn't that kind of a weird name?
I don't know. It opened during the Second Vatican Council. And it was right there. It was just there's nothing quite like it. It was great. The bar was great too.
All right. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move along. What else we got?
No memes this week, but we do obviously have a book of the week. Charles, what's your book of the week?
My book of the week. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
The Endless Knot. A 15 hanky book. No, it's the Endless Knot, as in cannot. And the knot in this case is the pentagram. And what is it? It is the first volume of my dear friend Bill Biersack's supernatural thriller novels, The Endless Knot. Now, I love this book for several reasons. One is that it's really a wonderful, self-contained, tight thriller. It's set in a mythical Los Angeles with mythical bishops because no archdiocese ever had bishops as weird and wicked as the ones in the book, right? Right?
Yes. Whatever you say. Whatever you say. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They couldn't possibly exist that awful, could they?
No.
Good. But there is an added amusement in that the priest detective, who was an ex police, an ex LAPD detective, who after his wife died had a delayed vocation, became a priest, and then decided to say the Latin Mass and bought a redundant church, which is where he's holding out. He is there with his redoubtable gardener and Dr. Watson-esque recorder of the adventures, is his gardener. But they're assisted in their investigations by a group of young men, the Knights Templar, after whom Tumbler House was named, because this is the book the Tumbler House was founded by your brother to publish.
Oh, yeah.
And your brother and I have the dubious honor of being thinly disguised characters in the book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Special prize, ladies and gentlemen, if you can figure out, well, you don't know Steve, but you do know me. And if you buy the book and you can figure out which of the characters is based on the me of 30 years ago, you'll get a special gift/surprise.
Not from me. Okay, I mean, if you're dispensing gifts and surprises, I'll let you to handle that, Charles.
There'll be spiritual gifts and surprises.
Okay.
the knowledge that you figured something out.
Okay.
You'll feel really good about yourself. So be sure to get your copy now while supplies last.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, so first in the series, there are 5 books total so far. After this, Darkness is Not, Search for Saint Valeria, Out of the Depths, and In So Much as to Deceive.
We breathlessly await the next one, which will appear at some point, God willing, sometime.
Yeah. All right. Very good. On to the questions.
Oh, boy. All right, I'm seated.
Good. All right, question from Will the Ohioan. He says, "Hi, Vincent. Since a couple weeks ago, there was a question on Charles's favorite book from a list of authors. Will you have Charles pick his favorite movie that each of these actors were in? Hope all is well." All right, so we've got a lightning round for actors.
Okay.
So I'll say the actor or actress, and you say your favorite movie that person was in.
You got it.
All right. Betty Davis.
Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte.
Grace Kelly.
The High Society.
Audrey Hepburn.
Oh, that's easy. Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Is it easy? Is it really easy?
Yeah. Yes, I love doing a bunch of other things, but Breakfast at Tiffany's is my favorite.
Okay. I don't know if it's that easy. My honorable mention to My Fair Lady. Hello.
Yeah, I know. It was good.
Okay.
She wasn't bad. She was all right in that film. She was passable. She managed. She got by with that.
Roman Holiday too. I don't think that's fair to her other movies. Say, oh, that's easy. All right. Bella. You know what? I'm gonna say Katharine Hepburn. I don't think Katharine. Oh yeah, she is on this. Okay, Katharine Hepburn.
The Philadelphia Story, which is funny because Grace Kelly's High Society is the musical version of Philadelphia Story.
Okay, well then, dare I say Jimmy Stewart?
Oh, Harvey.
Harvey?
Yeah.
I'm not even familiar. I like to think I know a lot of Jimmy Stewart movies, but Harvey?
Got you there, smart guy.
Okay, this is going to be a vexing list because you're... Wow, okay. Our lists are very different for these people. Okay.
I'm old, and these are old actors, so I've seen more of their films than you have. It's really that simple.
But just because you have seen more, why are you always going with the most obscure one?
Because I'm an obscure person. Ever since Sandra said to me, our friend Sandra.
Yeah.
Why do you always have to complicate things with facts?
I mean, but you're not stating facts. See, that's...
I had no answer to that. When she asked, I didn't know what to say. I really didn't. I had no response. I was like, well, I don't know. Just stupid, I guess.
All right, Bela Lugosi.
Well, that should be obvious. Dracula.
If you went...
although Plan 9 from Outer Space is certainly honorable mention. And I know Bride of the Monster was his last speaking role.
Okay, good. This is a good. You better not go weird on this one. Humphrey Bogart.
Oh, the Maltese Falcon.
Okay. There we go. I mean, there's like a lot to choose from, and if you're gonna go off the map for that one,
Race with the Devil.
I don't even know that one. Okay.
I could. Race with the Devil.
All right, Joan Crawford.
Oh, once again, whatever happened to Baby Jane?
Of course. Lionel Barrymore.
On Borrowed Time.
Ooh, my favorite, Barbara Stanwyck.
Double Indemnity.
Well, I'm going to move this guy up to the next to her then, Fred McMurray.
Follow me, boys.
That's ridiculous. Oh, my gosh. That's ridiculous. Okay, right. Mary Pickford?
Ooh, The Perils of Pauline.
Lillian Gish?
The Whales of August.
Bud Abbott and Lou Costello.
Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
William Holden.
Oh, wait, you know
okay.
what? That's hard. That's hard. That really is hard. But I'll take it back. The Time of Their Lives.
Okay.
For Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, no. Is that a comedy?
Yeah.
Okay. William Holden.
That's actually also very tough, but
You're gonna say Sunset Boulevard. You just are.
I'm torn between Sunset Boulevard and Network.
For me, it's actually the one he won for. It was a huge favorite of me and my dad. It makes me burst to be an American. It's Stalag 17.
Oh, yeah. All right, we'll go with Sunset Boulevard. You win.
Okay. But obviously all amazing movies. Edward G. Robinson.
Well,
and this is where you say Soylent Green or something.
Well, see, I'm torn between Soylent Green and Little Caesar. Because your Little Caesar reminds me, I know when I think of your own family, it gets me very nostalgic.
Oh, okay.
But, all right, we'll say Soylent Green. But, I mean, Little Caesar, Tales of Manhattan was another one that he was very good in, although it was a sort of an ensemble movie, and he was only in the last portion. But, all right, we'll go with Soylent Green.
I don't see this name in this list, but I'll add it. Jimmy Cagney.
Well, I mean, Yankee Doodle Dandy is...
Okay. Other than Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Manhattan Melodrama.
Interesting.
Oh, no, wait a minute. He wasn't in that. I want to say Footlight Serenade. It was a musical, but I probably have the name wrong.
Okay. Carol Lombard.
Topper.
Clark Gable.
Yeah, I hate to go along with everyone else's views, but Gone with the Wind.
William Powell.
The Thin Man.
Myrna Loy.
The Thin Man.
Jean Arthur.
Santa Fe.
Tallulah Bankhead.
Lifeboat.
Vivian Lee.
Well, I've already said Gone with the Wind, so Gone with the Wind, but she was creepy as all get out in Leave Her to Heaven.
I'm going to add another one to this list that's not on here. My favorite actor, Marlon Brando.
The Godfather. I mean,
really? I thought you were going to say Guys and Dolls.
I could have, and I also could have said A Dry White Season.
Actually, I mean, it's close. I mean, I have so many, but also...
The Wild One?
No, the on the waterfront. On the waterfront is like, oh man.
Yeah. Brando was a great actor. You know, a weird man, but a great actor.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. Greta Garbo.
Grand Hotel.
Ingrid Bergman.
Believe it or not, you know what? I'll say Casablanca, but I loved her in Murder on the Orient Express.
Okay. Henry Fonda.
Woof. The Cheyenne Social Club.
Judy Garland.
Oh, gosh, so many with that one. But you know what? I'm gonna go with the flow. Wizard of Oz.
Marlena Dietrich.
Destiny Rides Again.
I mean, Gary Cooper.
Oh, I hate to be so obvious, but
yeah,
High Noon.
Okay. Gregory Peck. Ooh.
The Keys of the Kingdom.
I knew you were gonna go. Okay. I knew you were gonna say To Kill a Mockingbird. I knew it. Okay. Claudette Colbert.
It Happened One Night.
Laurence Olivier.
Believe it or not, this isn't a movie, but as Lord Marchmain in Brideshead Revisited. It's a mini-series.
All right. Cary Grant.
A topper, actually.
I'm going to add one last one on the bonus round.
Okay.
Orson Welles.
Easy peasy Japanesey.
You're going to say a third man, aren't you?
No.
What are you going to say?
Although I love the third man. Chimes at Midnight.
Dude, of course you would say that. I don't even know that one. I feel like I knew a lot of Orson Welles. Chimes at Midnight?
Chimes at Midnight. That's where he plays Falstaff. You remember in the...
Oh, really?
Remember I talked in the pre-show. I quoted him being interviewed about Falstaff. Well, what he did was, see, Falstaff occurs in several different of Shakespeare's shows, plays. Merry Wives of Windsor, Henry IV. He's mentioned in Henry V. And what Orson Welles did for this film was he pulled out all of the different Falstaff bits, and he put them together in one narrative.
Yeah.
And he called it Chimes at Midnight. And where that title comes from is that there's one area where the Civil War is about to break out, the Battle of Tewkesbury and all that. And so John Falstaff is once again with his old college friend, Master Shallow. And Master Shallow says, "Oh, Sir John, the times we have seen, the times we have seen." And Falstaff replies, "Yes, Master Shallow, we have heard the chimes at midnight." Referring, of course, to youthful escapades when they were young.
Okay. I got to see that one then. All right,
it's online. It's easy to see.
All righty. Okay, thank you for that, Will. That was a fun one. All right. Speaking of fun, we've got a question from Andrew from New Jersey.
The Garden State.
So Andrew says, "Hello, gentlemen, and greetings from the final resting place of the airship Hindenburg. Oh, the humanity. The great state of New Jersey." Hi, Vinny. Hi, Charles. Just checking in. Just want to see how you're doing today. And if today is not a good day, I want you to take a deep cleansing breath, exhale, and remind yourselves that, hey, you're still here. Anyway, for my question. I wanted to know, when it comes to the big three, British, American, or Italian style suits, which does Charles prefer, and please explain why? Vinny, after Charles gives his answer, please ask Charles why he despises the other two. Okay. Charles, proceed.
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer because at different times, some of the three have looked better or worse. If you get what I mean.
That's interesting. No, I don't get what you mean.
All right. All of them have different, like Italian suits tend to be somewhat more exaggerated. British suits tended to be more wasp waisted, more tighter fitting. American suits baggier. So I favor American suits because I'm fat. If I were thin, British suits would be the best for me. But there are particular styles that go back and forth between them. I mean, my idea of the best possible suit, if you were to ask me to give the cut, it would be pinstriped, blue pinstripe, double-breasted vest with lapels, high trouser, going up about here, with braces, and cuffs on the trouser legs.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, so William Powell's suit.
Yeah, he epitomized it.
So basically the Thin Man, which is who you always said your dad. I mean, you think of your dad. So, okay, there it is.
It's true. Well, my taste in clothes I inherit from my father.
Yeah.
I definitely do. I was accused of being a one-man tribute act to Guy Coulombe.
Nothing to be ashamed of there.
Not in the slightest. If I can be the half the man my father was, then I'll have something. Of course, he didn't get to live in the world of Tuccia. I can only imagine what my father's jokes would be confronted with the moronic drivel we have now. And forget the Holy Father and Tuccia. I can imagine what he would do with the senile guy and the courtesan in Washington.
Well, shout out to your mom too. I'd be interested to see what she says.
Oh, well, she would just be, it would be nuclear. The difference between my parents was that my dad would point at something and you'd be laughing at how ridiculous it was. My mother would make cutting remarks, and I mean, I kind of felt slightly possessed by her when I sent out a tweet today, because one of the things that Tuccia did in one of his recent letters about becoming head of the DDF is that since he's neither European nor American, he has a unique point of view to bring, and blah, 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 blah. And I was immediately reminded of Madam Justice Sotomayor talking about being a wise Latina. And so I couldn't help myself. I tweeted, Madam Justice Sotomayor and Tuccia Cardinal Fernandez, two wise Latin X ?
I saw that.
Well, that's the kind of thing my mother would have said. She would have just asking, not saying there's anything wrong with that. But non-binary is in charge. What's wrong with that? What?
All right.
That was her humor was much more cutting than my father's. My dad would point out how ridiculous things were, and you'd be laughing. But mother, wow, she took no prisoners. She just and I have to say, watching the two of them working in tandem on somebody was always a treat. But not necessarily for the person they were dealing with, of course. I remember years ago, a person, shall we say, in some authority over me when I was at school, had introduced himself with his nickname, which was Jock. And he said, "I'm Jock so-and-so." And my parents are a little nonplussed, but he goes away, but not out of earshot, sadly. And my mother says to my father, "What is a jock?" And Dad says, "Well, it's kind of an underwear." And mother says, "Why does he call himself after it?" And Dad said, "I don't know. I suppose he identifies with it." And he heard, and my life became very painful. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
Yeah. The gift that keeps on giving. But the thing is, they were quite right. I mean, why would you call yourself that?
Yeah.
I know it's shorter than saying athletic supporter. Okay, fine.
All right. Daniel says, if Charles could restore the Holy Roman Empire, would he keep the 7 electors and the election part of the process, or directly make it a pure hereditary monarchy? Or if he would keep the election, would he modify it in any way? And if so, how? My thought was, would Charles include the kings of France, Spain, or other monarchies in the election, but not universal suffrage?
Well, yeah, I've thought about this. I mean, of course, I'm sure it's LARPing for those of you who get excited by this kind of thing, LARPing. But I thought about it, and probably what I would do is put the Electoral College would consist of all the hereditary monarchs of whatever realms were part of the empire. And the new emperor would be selected from one of their number.
Okay.
So it might be the king of Spain, it might be the king of Sweden, it might be the king of Bulgaria, might be the Tsar of Russia or the Austrian emperor.
Okay. What has been Charles's favorite subject in his theological studies, and why?
That's a very good question. I would say probably the relationship between the sacraments and ecclesiology. And not that this was not directly part of my studies, but I'd say the relationship between the sacraments and ecclesiology and their political implications.
The political implications of the sacraments.
And ecclesiology. Yeah.
Can you go into an area of that that might be of interest?
Yeah, sure. I can. Yeah, definitely.
Please do so.
Oh, all right. So basically, it's like this. You may recall the Last Supper.
Right.
Now that
yeah.
was our Lord was very busy. He was doing different things. He initiated the priesthood, started the mass, which commencement would be consummated on the cross. The combination of the sacrifice on the cross with the transubstantiation of the Last Supper. But he did something else. He united the Davidic kingship, to which he was the rightful heir, with the communio of the church. Now, in the beginning, the first few hundred years of our existence, that didn't really mean much. It was sort of in germ, as you might say. But then whole countries became Catholic, starting with Armenia, Nubia, Georgia, Ethiopia, and then finally, in 380, the Roman Empire. And from time to time, there'll be other places. And of course, eventually the barbarian tribes moved in and carved out kingdoms, but they were all part of the same thing. Well, from that time, several things happened, especially when Theodosius the Great made baptism entry not only into the church, but into Roman citizenship. So, under that sort of a setup, the Catholic Church and the Catholic state were different aspects of the same Res Publica Christiana, and Catholic kingship became a participation in the kingship of Christ. Or if you want to put this in Thomistic / Aristotelian terms, this one Res Publica Christiana, this one body of Christ. The church was its form, and the state was its matter. And so, only members of the church were full citizens. Jews, Protestants, not Protestants, but heretics and Muslims. They were not necessarily enemies, but they were foreigners. And usually they lived under their own rules if they weren't considered to pose a danger to the state. They would live in their own sections, which is why in the Jewish ghettos, for instance, the rabbi's word was law. They ran themselves completely. So this was the way it was until the Reformation. And at that time, in those countries where the Reformation triumphed, the Catholics were suddenly outside the body politic. And that was a sort of a perversion of the way it was supposed to work, but that's how it happened. And over the past several hundred years, what's happened is that in the Protestant countries, mostly peacefully, the process of secularization was gradual. And the new state church slowly but surely surrendered and opened up membership to non-members of that church, Catholics, Jews, whatever. And then in Catholic countries, it was generally demolished through violence, through revolutions of different kinds. But you can still see pieces of the old order in all sorts of ways. Even the blue laws, for instance, in New England, is a remnant of the not working on Sunday, which was such a big part of Catholic Europe. Usually people don't really know why they continue doing things in this area, but the red masses that open up throughout America, the red masses that open up the legal year, they're remnants of all that. And that there was very definitely a theological basis to the Catholic state. Now, what happened, of course, was that after you have these revolutions and the Catholic state is destroyed, for a while, through the course of the 19th and to some degree into the 20th century, churchmen, the high clergy, still saw that as an ideal. But after World War II and the establishment of the Soviet American diarchy, it was obvious that wasn't coming back anytime soon. So there was a rush, actually starting as early as the 1880s with Leo XIII, to try to accommodate themselves to the new, on the part of major churchmen, popes and others, to the new system. But that was initially seen as simply an expedient. Obviously, if the Catholic state no longer exists, you've still got to function if you're the church. You've still got to try to save souls. But that's an expedient. It's not the ideal. By the time of Vatican II, churchmen came to justify the new arrangements as superior to the idea of the Catholic state. What Benedict XVI saw as the confessionally neutral state, nevertheless enlightened by gospel values. And of course, the prime example of that was Eisenhower's America. And so from this notion came the idea that was dear to the Council Fathers, that Anglo-American liberalism and continental, that is European and Latin American liberalism, were actually different creatures. Not just different in degree, but different in kind. Now, to us living today, that looks very, very naive. But it's important to remember that that's not how it looked back then. Now, today, of course, liberalism of both kinds has dominated completely. And with very few exceptions, the church is more or less the enemy of the state, even when she doesn't realize it or doesn't want to. And what COVID showed is that the state no longer sees the church as any kind of partner, but just another subject like the Rotary Club or the Boy Scouts to be regulated and dealt with, any way they want, while a lot of senior churchmen still delude themselves into thinking that the state values them to some degree. And the funny thing, though, is that for a lot of really decent theologians, they saw this up until recent, the most recent elements, they saw this development as a good thing, as somehow freeing the church of its Constantinian entrapment. And they would say things like, now the church is, I'm going back to the 60s, now the church is free to preach the gospel without being enchained by the state. But the problem with saying things like that is that they were historically inaccurate. How do you think Father Serra, St. Junipero Serra, and St. Francis Xavier managed to travel and do the things they did? Where do you think the money came from? It came from the Catholic states. That's where it came from. And, people are fond of saying, oh, well, they were doing it for their own ends. Everyone does things for their own ends. But without the religious end, they wouldn't have bothered at all. Moreover, I don't mind saying this, that the implication is somehow given that with things like the fall of the Catholic state, the loss of the papal states, the church would somehow be pure. When it's, somehow holier. My response to that is Cardinal McCarrick and all his works and pomps. I don't see that being totally separate from the state has made the church any holier at all. I really, really do not see that. Huh. Thought I'd gotten a mosquito and I missed him. Anyway, so it's, I'll just say one more thing on this, and that is that I've written an article about this recently called Vatican II and the Political Manichees, which you could see in Crisis magazine. But even a great theologian like Pope Benedict was of this mindset. And he gave an interesting speech to the German president and other Machers in Germany in 2005, when he was Pope, or 2007, something like that. Anyway, he makes the comment that the church is like the tribe of Levi, which had no land of its own in the kingdom of Israel, but lived basically with the assistance of others. And I read that, and it occurred to me that's quite wrong. The priesthood is like the tribe of Levi. The church is like the kingdom of Israel in its entirety. Prince, priest, and thrall, the whole thing. Laymen, rulers, clerics, popes, and emperors. All part of the Respublica Christiana, all part of the body of Christ. Now, the fact that we're very, shall we say, light on the ground when it comes to emperors and kings today simply means that we're more or less back where we were before Armenia came into the church. But that doesn't change the principle, if you understand what I mean. It doesn't change the ideal. There was something, if I can find it, what I wrote that was kind of funny. I called it Manichaeism because the implication was that the church is all spirit and all clerical and somehow pure, whereas the state, by the nature of it being a state, is inevitably and must be evil, which sounds like the kind of dualism that the Manichaeans did. But there was a phrase of Vatican II that I really got to quote. It's because at the time of Vatican II, they were so giddy about this idea that everything is we're going to become one with the new modern liberal world. Here it is. This is from Lumen Gentium. Are you ready? Now remember, we're talking about the early 60s, so Kennedy is president of the United States. The West considers itself Christian. De Gaulle is running France. Adenauer is running Germany. It's like that. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Listen to this. Because the human race today is joining more and more into a civic, economic, and social unity, it is that much the more necessary that priests, by combined effort and aid, under the leadership of the bishops and the supreme pontiff, wipe out every kind of separateness, so that the whole human race may be brought into the unity of the family of God.
Okay.
Okay. What does that mean? It's not a call to conversion.
Yeah.
So what is it?
You tell me, Charles.
I don't know. It's funny. I laughed very hard when I saw it, but I don't know what it means. So, as I say, the notion of church and state being part of the same Respublica Christiana, united by the communio, the Eucharist, and baptism, that was a very powerful image, a very powerful thing. It's something we've long lost, and it's something that would take forever to rebuild. And of course, it's not something that came about as the point of evangelization. It was an organic growth. It's not like people sat around with a blueprint. But very often, the Holy Ghost moves through events. To give you an example, if in some future time, the United States, the vast proportion of the population of the U.S. became Catholic, their institutions, their political institutions, would change to reflect this new reality. And then it would be no good saying, oh, well, we don't want to have a Catholic state. It would simply happen. That was the basic problem with, what's his face? Paul Blanchard's book, American Freedom and Catholic Power. Apart from the fact that he thought that we Catholics were serious about our social teaching, which of course we're not, beyond that, what he didn't understand was that the documents he was reading from the popes and from foreign bishops were the last description of what had been the natural way of doing things in a Catholic state. But it's not as if the churches anywhere advocated overthrowing the established order and making it Catholic in that sense. She has advocated defending it where it exists. She has certainly supported those who have tried to defend it. But you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You can convert it, but that's kind of a miraculous thing, conversion. There are no natural means to make a decent state out of what we have. You can make it better. You can ameliorate this and that. But by its nature, the non-Catholic state is abusive and nasty.
All right. That was quite a segment, Charles. Thank you for that. We're going to move on to another question from Daniel. So he says, I realize I'm asking two men who have older brothers, but why did so many firstborn sons in Genesis Kings get passed up in inheritance or blessings? Seth, Shem, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, King David, King Solomon. None of them were the firstborn son. Genesis 49 outlines why Judah was raised above his elder brothers because of their sin. And that would seem to be the case for Cain and Seth as well. even Solomon's older brothers, and Isaac. Isaac was the son of Sarah, the true wife of Abraham, instead of Hagar. But that doesn't appear to hold up for Ephraim and Manasseh, or David and his older brothers. It just seems like it happened too much not to have deeper significance.
Well, of course, as younger brothers, we know older brothers are inevitably evil.
Yep, for sure.
But the no, I think there's I think there are several things at play here. One is what's not to like.
Yeah, sorry.
No, what is that? Older brothers do not have to try as hard, and they very often take things for granted because of the older brothers. Whereas, I mean,
so you mean younger brothers don't have to try as hard? You said older brothers don't.
Older brothers do not have to try as hard because, by virtue of being the oldest, especially in a society where inheritance means so much, the older brother is expected to inherit.
Oh.
So they don't have to try as hard. He's from birth, he is the oldest brother. He is the one who's going to inherit whatever there is, if anything, to inherit. The younger brothers have to make their own way in life. You know, they have to, again, depending on the exact nature of the society, but they may work under the direction of their older brother or not, but they really, to a great degree, have to make their own way and their own life in a way that the older brother often did not have to. But this, certainly in the biblical world, I think often enough led to a certain kind of complacency, which we see illustrated in particular with Esau and Jacob. So there's a warning to older brothers that just because they think they have it in the bag, they don't necessarily. They've got to try quite as hard as their younger brothers. And I think there is a message there that, you know, don't take your inheritance for granted, like Esau did.
Okay. So, another question. What does Charles think of RFK Jr. and his campaign for the presidency?
Not much. Partly because he's a Kennedy, partly because he's pro-abortion. And that's just a deal killer for me. Full stop. Well, can't we dialogue? I don't know. Would you dialogue with a Nazi? No.
Well, so obviously you're talking about suitability and this and that. Does he have any chance to win?
I doubt it. I mean, you're in a weird position. Trying to unseat a sitting president, even one who's even more senile than President Hindenburg, is tough, especially if the party has resolved to back him. And Kennedy, although he sucks up like everybody else to the infanticide party line, nevertheless is too much of a loose cannon. And as Kennedy thinks too much of himself and not enough of his bosses.
When you say the political party is deciding to go with Biden, how does it happen? What does that look like? Is just all the big power people just go in a room and say, you know what, we're gonna stick with this? Like, what does that look like?
It used to be like that. I don't know what it looks like now. And see, the thing is, in my time, the sitting president has never been a complete senile nonentity before. He's always had some input, you know what I mean? But you've got a man who's out of his head and a woman who doesn't have two brain cells to rub together. So I have no idea who's really guiding the bus.
All right, Connor says, greetings to the newly minted Master Charles and the Master's Master, Vincent. The song Atlantis by Donovan came up on my music playlist recently, complete with the opening narrative where he talks about the continent contributing to all world cultures, the gods, such as the poet, the magician, etc., though it might have been of the same strain of creativity as Age of Aquarius, it got me thinking about the actual legend of Atlantis. Could Charles tell us what he knows about the legend of Atlantis, and maybe if there is any Catholic tie-in to the fabled continent? Could there be any truth to it? What is Charles hiding from us about Atlantis? Also, could Charles tell us what is up with the bizarre opening narrative of Donovan's Atlantis? Where did that come from? Thank you and congratulations on your master's degree.
Well, it's like this. Thank you very much for your congratulations. It's like this. When the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, then peace shall reign throughout the planets and love shall steer the stars. Because it is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, the age of Aquarius.
Charles?
Yeah?
That sounds like astrological gibberish to me.
Somebody read the Wikipedia article, I can tell. All right, well, Donovan, Juniper, Jennifer, Juniper lives upon the hill. They call me Mellow Yellow, quite rightly. I have probably not listened to Atlantis in, it could be almost 50 years.
Wow.
And of course, after tonight's podcast, you know I'm going to have to listen to it. So thanks a heap. Well, to answer your question, it is antediluvian, that's for sure. No, basically the legend of Atlantis has been with us since Plato's time. The idea that there was a great civilization, he says, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and from which the Atlantic Ocean derives its name. And all sorts of pseudo-historians, pseudo-archaeologists, psychics, and all kinds of other people have come up with all sorts of things about Atlantis. Still, where there's smoke, there's fire. There was in the 19th and early 20th centuries a great deal of interest in Atlantis in certain Catholic circles. Let me see if I can find it. The Iran in Paray-le-Monial, which was it was a what's the word? Paray-le-Monial was the Iran Paray-le-Monial was dedicated to spreading the Sacred Heart and all that. But they were very much interested in the possibility that Atlantis was this great civilization underlying our own. The origin of human speech and all this and that. Now, there was in the 60s, as part of the Age of Aquarius, the recrudescence of all sorts of interest in strange and obscure things, a fascination with lost continents, not just Atlantis, but also Lemuria or Mu, as Colonel Churchward called it. And a lot of 19th and early 20th century books were reprinted in paperback form and avidly eaten up by countercultural people. And so what Donovan gives you is the sort of basic précis of the consensus of Atlantis fans about what Atlantis was. And of course, he identifies the recovery of Atlantis with the triumph of the counterculture. Now, what does that mean? Well, a lot of people who were into that sort of thing saw it as the beginning of a new civilization, a new culture of love, as opposed to the horrible culture of greed and rules that they'd grown up under. And for such people, Atlantis symbolized the society they were looking for. And that's its meaning in Donovan's song. He's going to find his antediluvian love in Atlantis.
Okay. Final question for the episode is from Philip. Superfan Philip.
Superfan.
Yeah. He says, can you say anything about the phenomenon of deathbed conversion? Has this happened since the inception of the church, or is it a more modern phenomenon? Does it tend to happen more in certain nations or cultures? Do any noteworthy instances come to mind?
The last is probably the best to start with. Sure, Oscar Wilde, possibly George Washington, Dutch Schultz. There have been quite a number, really.
John Wayne, I thought.
Yes, John Wayne. Yeah, there have been a number of Hollywood people. Wallace Stevens, the poet.
Yeah.
And what's his name? The myth man, Campbell. Joseph Campbell. Mind you, he was a revert because he had been Catholic when he was young, but he came back on his deathbed. There have been a number of others. I think it's something that's gone on since forever. I mean, in the early days, sometimes they even revived corpses. It doesn't get more deathbed than someone being brought back to life and baptized.
When did that happen?
Oh, Lord, St. Patrick. There are a number of these examples.
He raised the dead and baptized the resurrected person?
Yep.
So he basically saved that, that person. Wow, I never heard of that before. That's unbelievable.
Well, a lot of things.
Talk about a get out of jail free card. Wow.
Well, must have been a lot of natural goodness in that person. Let me see if I can. Let's see. I'll put it in Patrick.
That's unbelievable. Are there books on this? I want to read a book on St. Patrick's miracle of.
Well, there was in fact such a book. I'm trying to remember the name of the author. It was carried by Catholic treasures back in the day. If I can remember, Living Awards for Dead Apostles.
Is it no, I remember the book. So is it Saints Who Raised the Dead?
Yeah.
I thought that might have been Joan Carroll Cruz. I'm not sure.
No, it wasn't. It was someone else.
But that was the book. I thought it was by Tan. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, there we go. True Stories of 400 Resurrection. It wasn't by Father Hébert. That's right, Albert Hébert. Came out in '86. Yeah. That is the one.
Wow, do I feel stupid. That's in the Tumbler House bookstore, and I have it on sale. $9 off. Wow. It's normally $24.95. Now it's $15.95. It's in the Tumbler House bookstore. I have to get that, but I'm going to take advantage of this sale. What a deal. It's a steal of a deal.
I would say.
335 pages, so that's pretty substantial. I'm just going to read the summary while you're looking at things. So we've got St. Francis Xavier, St. Patrick, St. John Bosco, St. Catherine of Siena, St. Teresa of Avila, St. Elizabeth of Hungary, St. Rose of Lima, Blessed Margaret of Castello are among those you will encounter in this publication's pages. And apparently it's illustrated.
Yeah.
Wow.
He wrote some others. I mean, he was sort of the male clerical Joan Carroll Cruz. He wrote a lot of interesting books like this.
Mm.
Um, the Father Albert J. Hebert. I don't think that was his only book, surely.
Sounds familiar. Let's see.
It's the only one that comes up in Amazon.
A prayer book of favorite litanies is coming up for me on Amazon. The 3 Days of Darkness, Prophecies of Saints and Seers. Prophecies of Chastisement and Purification.
No, but his biggest thing was
Yeah.
definitely the Saints That Raised the Dead.
Yeah.
He died in 2003, as it turns out. I have a vague recollection when he died. He was a Marist, ordained in 54. Yeah. So, anyway, so there's your answer. It goes back all the way to all the way.
I guess, so just talking about the way things appear to be, do you think that perhaps there are more deathbed conversions now than perhaps previous times because of perhaps, how effective healthcare is now compared to previous times, how obviously longevity.
I have no way of knowing. I mean, I do know, for instance, that in our part of the world, because there's so many. No, I mean your part of the world, I should say, because there's so many Filipino nurses. There are a lot of more deathbed conversions you have in places where you don't have a lot of Catholic nurses.
That's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, it's because they're attentive. If someone expresses a desire to see a priest, a Filipino nurse is quite likely to get him one.
Wow. Okay. No, but so in terms of, do you think they're more now than perhaps 1,000 years ago?
I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I have no idea at all.
Okay.
Except maybe there are more people than there were 1,000 years ago.
Well, that's true. That's very true. All right. That's gonna do it for this episode.
No, it won't.
Okay, proceed. So I think I have notes here of your 40-page ode to spring. Proceed.
Yes, but that's not what we're gonna do.
Okay.
That's not what we're doing, silly.
Okay, what are we doing?
I think what we're doing. I think we need something that's heart-building. It's summary. Something that will make people feel good about themselves. And it just occurred to me. You remember I mentioned the Cavalier poets earlier?
Yeah.
We may have recited this before on the show, ladies and gentlemen, but today, when everything in church and state seems so horrible, I may have done this before on the show, but it's one of my favorite poems by Richard Lovelace, who was imprisoned for his support of King Charles I by the Puritans in the Tower of London. And he had a girlfriend named Althea. And she would come to see him, there'd be the grating, and they would talk. And that was the beginning, the inspiration for the first stanza of the poem. I mention it, and I bring it up, and I'm going to read it because looking at church and state today, you may feel very imprisoned, in a sense. We have no alternative to the creatures that are running the show right now. And that's very dispiriting, I think. But this poem from Richard Lovelace, who, as I say, when he wrote it, was in the tower, was in prison and facing death, although in the event he did get out. It has some worthwhile things to think about when we're feeling really depressed. To Althea from Prison by Richard Lovelace. When love with unconfined wings hovers within my gates, and my divine Althea brings to whisper at the grates, when I lie tangled in her hair and fettered to her eye, the gods that wanton in the air know no such liberty. When flowing cups run swiftly round with no allaying Thames, our careless heads with roses bound, our hearts with loyal flames, when thirsty grief in wine we steep, when hells and draughts go free, fishes that tipple in the deep know no such liberty. When, like committed linnets, I with shriller throat shall sing the sweetness, mercy, majesty, and glories of my King, when I shall voice aloud how good he is, how great should be, and lodged winds that curl the flood know no such liberty. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Minds innocent and quiet, take that for an hermitage. If I have freedom in my love, and in my soul am free, angels alone that soar above enjoy such liberty. Don't let the batar grind you down, ladies and gentlemen. Stay sane inside insanity. This too will pass. The church got through Stephen VI and Julius III and John XII and Benedict IX and the whole pornocracy. We shall get through pornocracy too, Electric Boogaloo. And the state? Well, the state will last or it won't. We'll see what happens. But whatever happens, remember, ladies and gentlemen, that all of what we're going through is simply the historical background for the story of our individual salvation or damnation. So remember that. Keep your eyes on the prize. That's another important song from the era of the counterculture. Do you know it?
Keep your eyes on the prize?
Yeah.
I know the saying. I like the saying. But I'm probably wouldn't like the song.
Oh, says you. It's an old civil rights song. The only thing that we did wrong was staying in the wilderness too long. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on. The only thing that we did right was the day we began to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on. You don't think Chief Clancy made his way to the top of the Arcadia PD by being a pushover, do you?
Definitely not.
You don't think Lydia got to the top of the secretarial pool by just giving up?
Definitely not. Nope.
Why do you think old Rose has kept her job for over 49 years?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's due to. I don't know if that's due to not being.
She's kept enduring.
Okay.
Why do you think Walter has been in shipping and shipping in the mailroom for 51 years? Exactly. That's called perseverance.
Okay.
It's also, in his case, it might also be a lack of ambition. But, you never know. And look at Tyrone. Do you think for 1 minute, if Tyrone had been worried or frightened or upset about possible results of his actions, he would ever have made it to top of security?
Well, that's very true.
That's right. It isn't every security guard who can give his watch shoot to kill orders.
Yeah. So.
And
That's
the
true.
trespassing problem, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yep.
All right, so
So,
that's gonna do it. I have a question for you. What is it if it's Monday?
off the menu.
What about the soul you save?
Could be your own.
Bye.
Just remember, void were prohibited, ladies and gentlemen.
See you next time.
God bless.